Hey, David.
Morning.
Good morning. So how's everyone doing today so far? Good.
Excellent. How about yourself?
Can't complain. It's finally somewhat decent out as far as weather this week. Right, a couple days we'll have to wear parka again. I'm just guessing. I don't actually know what the weather looks like.
Oh, thank God. I bet you knew.
I'm just thinking we're in New England. It changes, right? Every time the wind blows, we get something different.
I agree, but at some point, I just in the year I just burned my parka, so I'm going without.
All right, so we'll give it another minute here. And then what we'll do is we'll jump into command and start going through opportunities.
Right. Hey, Fred, this is Dave Reed. I believe I'm supposed to be co-hosting with you.
Yep, I threw it in there for you. So you have a co-host on there as well.
Excellent. So what we want me to do? Just monitor chat?
Yep, chat and that mute button in case anybody is distracted on a phone call kind of thing.
Okay.
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll get started, and then every so often we'll take a break and look at the questions in the chat. We'll do some Q&A at the end, and hopefully we'll answer all of your questions as we get through.
Okay.
If there's anything specific that anyone has to have an answer for right this second, feel free to use the raise hands in the chat, and we'll call on you and we'll take those questions from there. But feel free to not only chime in or hide. Don't necessarily have to hide behind your cameras, but the more faces we can see, the more interaction, the better we get. So awesome. So we'll get started here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we should see commands. I'm just going to open up my chat just so I can monitor that as well. And we'll get started. All right, so everyone, my name is Fred Moore. I am one of the New England Regional Technology Trainers here. And so today we're going to be focusing on opportunities. We aren't going to necessarily go into the compliance pieces of this. It's really going to be more of the overview of what opportunities itself is, not just the getting paid piece of it. So let's go ahead and get started by clicking on the red KW icon on the top left. It'll expand all of my applets for me, and we'll head into the handshake icon or opportunities. This is where we're going to see our sales pipeline. This is going to have our phases and stages here for us to view and be able to kind of quickly jump in here and see what does our business actually look like. So as you use these, and we'll get into creating them, you'll see we have different numbers here based on where they are in your sales pipeline, really going to dictate how much money that you are making, and where you need to be focusing your time. So right off the bat, let's go ahead and start by creating an opportunity. So I'm in here, handshake icon in opportunities, and in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to have create opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Our first drop down we are going to have is our market center. If you are a part of multiple, make sure that you're choosing the correct one. To the right of that, you're going to have a team drop down. If you are in fact on a team, you will have the ability to choose the team or remove it. Depending on if you are on a team or not, if you are on a team and you're selecting the team, note that the contact, the client, must also be in the team. So for those of you that are individual, forget what I'm about to say, but team members, contact must be in the team contacts in order to have a team opportunity. So if you know the contact is in there and you start typing in the name here and it doesn't show up, it may still be in your personal versus your team. So then we have opportunity type, and what we'll have is listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant, and then who owns the opportunity. So we're going to stick with listing for now and go ahead and choose a client. As you start typing in a name, they will appear for you here. The co-seller, when I click on this drop down, if they have a related contact, so as we're creating the contact card itself, you can add a spouse or cousin or stepfather or brother, sister, whatever it may be, that would show up here first. If that's the contact you want to use, in this case as the co-seller, you can choose them. Otherwise, you can go ahead and choose a different name by typing it in and selecting them appropriately. Opportunity name. This defaults to the opportunity type and the client's name. So if I were to choose a buyer, it would say buyer, so on and so forth. When it comes to listings, I've gotten in the habit, and I'm sure that your compliance team, your back office would really appreciate it as well, if you name the opportunity the address. So in this case, if we're selling a home or listing the home, I put in 123 Main Street. And then kind of go from there. If it was the buyer, I'm going to leave it as the buyer's name. I also then go ahead and move forward, and I'll actually put in, if I have a referral fee, for referral to John for 25%. And that just lets me know as a reminder and my team know to process that referral fee. Just kind of gotten in the habit of doing that. You can also do that when it comes to tags. Right? If you wanted to create a tag, this is referral 25%. You can go ahead and create that tag just like you would inside contacts. But now this is going to be a tag for the opportunity. So this is not necessarily the contact tag, but it's the opportunity to transact. Estimated close date. This is now, if we're going to list it, we know this market right now, homes are selling very quickly and may need to go pretty quick. So a 30-day close, let's say, will close end of March. And that's not a required field. You don't have to necessarily put it in there, but can. So you need to go back to find the address to put in for the contact. No, like I said, you don't have to change the opportunity name to the address. I just know if I'm listing a property, that's my workflow is I'm putting in the property address as the opportunity name. You don't have to do that. That's just a recommendation. Estimated list price. What are we listing the property for? Or what do we think we're going to list the property for? And then commission rate here. Commission rate is going to be what you're taking on your side. So not necessarily what you are giving out and your side. So total, if you're taking a 5%, 6% listing, it would be only what you are taking on your side. Allison, you had a question.
I do. Where next to the estimated close date, I believe I had a box where you could just pick like a month or 2 months or 3 months.
That is under buyer.
Okay.
That is there yet. So the listing and buyer have different categories here.
Okay.
So estimated close date would be on the listing. The time frame would be a buyer dropdown.
Okay. So you're always just putting an estimated date for the lister. Okay. For the listing. Okay. Thank you.
Great question. So now we move down to our opportunity phase and stage. We're going to dive into more detail on what these are here shortly. Phases never change, and we can never create an opportunity under the phase under contract. So we'd like to get in the habit of creating them before they're under contract, so you get to track them through the pipeline, through the life of the whole transaction. So we have cultivate, appointment, or active. And then you have your stages, whichever you created for that particular phase. So they'll change accordingly. So for now, let's leave it as appointment, and we'll change it to scheduled. At what point does a lead become an opportunity? Should all leads be opportunities? A lead is a one-way. So when I think of a lead is a one-way conversation. A one-way conversation of me reaching out to you and you're not responding. And as soon as you do, now that becomes a contact. That's how I'm going to define them inside of contacts. As far as opportunities are concerned, as soon as someone raises their hand and says, hey, Fred, I'm looking to buy or sell a property, I am creating an opportunity. And that's whether they're buying or selling in 5 minutes from now or in 5 years. And then I'm going to put them into the appropriate phase and stage, which then allows me to have the appropriate follow-up tactics to move them through my pipeline up until closing. Good question, Mark.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep. So once we have all of those in, go ahead and hit that create button, and it'll bring us to the details tab. So now we're inside of a particular opportunity. In this details tab, what we're going to see is the general information that we started with, and you can always put in more information in there. You just simply click on the pencil icon here at the top, and it allows you to make some modifications. As you see, there's a little bit more information here. So time frame for months, when was the appointment scheduled, appointment dates, contact dates and agreements. So you can put in more information here if you so choose. There is a property tab here. What my suggestion for this is going to be is to not fill this in manually. Although compliance wants to have a listing selected, you can't select it until it's already live and in the system. So I just come back to this later, and then I'm going to select up top here, select from listings after my property is live, and I can grab a property and then that will fill in for me. So now my property is associated with my opportunity. This here is really meant for if this property wasn't here. Let's go ahead and remove that. If let's say the property that I'm selling will be off market, or maybe it's new construction and we can't find the address, then I'll go ahead and hit the pen icon and I'll go ahead and fill in my information. And then save, and then that will fill in both sections for me. The biggest difference between the two is now this is not connected to anything in KW. It's just connected to the address associated with it. So future pacing, the more information, the more connection we have, the easier it is to kind of track down things as well. As we move down here, you're going to see Porch. This is a third-party piece that's inside of Marketplace. If you wanted to use that, you absolutely could. It's really fun for repair estimates, but I'm not going to focus on that today. It does not change the name of the opportunity, Gail. Nope. And the recording of this webinar will be on YouTube. The opportunity name you can change, that would be in the details, but the property address does not change it accordingly. Which brings up something if you're working with a buyer, let's say, and you're under contract and that contract terminates and you go back and sell them another property, we'd come back in and change the property again, but that would not change the name, just as a heads up on that. All right, so then we also have a seller worksheet here. So you have like the net sheet that you can fill out and put in compensation for buyer, seller, their cost, their mortgage balance, and kind of help them see what is the capital that I'm going to walk away with after we sell the home. And then descriptions, if you wanted to put any notes about this opportunity, you could down here at the bottom. All right, one thing to keep noting, if at any point there are some kind of issues with your opportunity and you need to get support and they ask you for the opportunity ID, just to point out here, you're going to see this blue number here, and this is what support is going to be asking for. So in my case, it's 0815, et cetera. So this is the number that they're looking for when it comes to that. All right, so our next tab here is seller profile. If it decides to load for me, here we go. And we're going to see that they have not registered with the consumer platform, these contacts. And if they had, you'd be able to see what kind of interactions they're having with your buyer and seller guides inside of your app. So you'll be able to see if they completed anything inside of that, checked it off, and kind of go from there. Allison, you have another question?
I do, thank you. So I did this, I was testing this out the other day. So should this be linking to the Keller Williams app?
Yes.
Okay, so I did it with my husband and he had the app, he liked a few things, but I'm not seeing anything on my screen.
Correct. So if you like some properties, that's going to show up in the contact card. If he's going through the guides, that will show here. So you'll see the guide. What's associated here with the profile, not him searching for properties.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
The guide part doesn't make sense.
So inside of the app itself, there is a guide section for buyers and sellers that you would then go into consumer and customize the way you feel your process looks. And they can go in and mark off that they've completed a portion of your guide, and that's what will appear.
Okay, so I need to learn the app better. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So now the next tab here is documents. My documents tab may look slightly different than yours, as this is where I'm going to do all of my compliance. I'm not going to go into all of the compliance details because every market center does it slightly differently. However, what I will point out is this is where I'm going to start a transaction from. So when it's time to actually create a DocuSign room, or if you're still using .loop, you can do the same. Always create the opportunity first and then create the room or loop. That way, the information from here will go over into your room, and then you can pull those documents from your room without having to download and upload them manually for compliance. So you would hit start a transaction, and now that transaction or the loop that's created or room is now associated with the opportunity. So then for a room, the contacts information, so name, phone number, email, will go into the details tab. It does not bring over the addresses at this point. It just brings over the name, phone number, and email. What's most important at bringing that over, though, is name and email address for when you're using those pre-tagged roles. All right, so now as we scroll down a little bit in this compliance here on the left-hand side, sometimes you'll have a drop down here when they'll have residential versus commercial or whatever their drop downs may be, or they'll have it listed out on what you need to select. And in my case, I have listed under contract and closed, and this is what my office is requiring for me to do to be compliant when I have a new listing. Once that listing is under contract, here's where I would go, and then closed if there's anything I need to do accordingly. And every time that I do this and I upload documents, I'm going to make sure I hit that submit to MC button here on the right-hand side. As soon as I add a file, it will light up for me. And then I'm starting to get communications from them, whether it's accepted or rejected. And then I can have comments. So here in the middle of the screen, I can have a chat box here between the market center compliance department or MCA or whoever is in here, as well as myself, and you can communicate about this particular folder. The other pieces here, if I want to, not only do I have these 4 items, but if I wanted to add an additional item, that's what this would be here for. So if it's not one of these 4, add item, what is the name? What is my document type? Any more notes? And then if I adding it manually, or if I had connected DocuSign or .loop, you would see that little button there, and I can add accordingly, and it'll appear down here at the bottom. I can do that as well over here on the left-hand side and create custom folders. So if I wanted to continue to add other things, I would do that accordingly. Now, when it comes to adding all of these files in, I know most of the market centers or offices want you to separate all of these documents for compliance, and you have one individual uploads. Some of them may not require that. The goal for that, though, is future pacing, is so that when we read all of these contracts through AI, they'll be able to pick that information out for you and help you with negotiations and offers and such. And so when we add them individually, right, I come over to the right-hand side, and I click add a file, and I'm going to do it one form at a time. If I have a bunch of them that I want to upload, right here in the middle of the screen, it says attach multiple files. And I would do that at the top. Again, I would select DocuSign or .loop, whatever it may be. And then I can just click my drop downs and add them all the way through, hit attach, and they'll all populate for me pretty quickly. So it saves quite a bit of time when I have them all in one place. Or again, if I have them on my computer, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping and putting them in here, or opening up and selecting the appropriate files. If sale falls through, do you choose the lost opportunity? No, you do not. So if a deal falls through and the client decides they're no longer going to work with you, then that would be a lost opportunity. If a deal falls through and you're going to continue to work with them to find the next home or find the next buyer, then the opportunity to transact with them is still there. So you're not going to do anything with that. You're going to use the same exact opportunity just for the next file. With that, with compliance, we'll get to the offers and commissions here in a second, but you're just going to come to your folder and you're going to create a second version of it. So we'll see here, I have under contract in the middle of the screen. I'm going to click my drop down and click add version, and I could rename that and then go create new version. And when I do that, now I can upload all of the new documents for the new purchase and sale that I just got. And then I can switch back and forth between version 1 and version 2 to see the last contract versus the new contract. So you don't have to then go and create a new opportunity in a new room and do all of this over. Do it all within the same one.
Can you redo that step again?
Which one?
The renew opportunity. Renew opportunity. Under
This one here. So right.
Yeah.
So add version, and then create new version. And now I'll have 3 different versions that I can cycle through depending on which offer I'm working on.
I have one question. What if like the new version is still on the offer stage and not under contract? How will you do it?
I do not know the nuances of your state and how you proceed through your compliance, so I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So once we get through the compliance pieces of it and we submit to Market Center, now because we don't have necessarily green sheets all the time, some offices are still doing them. But if we want to replace those, it would be moving on to offers and commissions. And before I do, I see Kimberly has her hand raised. I want to make sure I answer that.
My question is, if you move on to a new version, so you're under contract on a new property, is it easy just to transfer like the information from the first version, like the buyer's agreement, the disclosures, you know, that all that stuff you give them up front, that just carries forward with every transaction?
Well, that would all then still be inside of your room, right? And you can just grab
Right.
those and upload them as you're uploading all of the other new documents.
So you can't drag and drop them out of the other under contract spot. Yeah.
It would be on a different screen, right? So
Yeah.
if here's one, right, I'll just add a file to it just so you can see the difference. So here's version
Right.
1. Now, if I go to version 2, there's no way for me to see and drag and drop that to version 2.
That's what I wondered. Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank
that's
you.
where attach multiple files comes in, and I can just move down the line pretty quickly.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so now offers and commissions tab here. On the selling side, I absolutely love this, especially in today's market when we're getting multiple offers. Prior to this, what I'd actually would do is I'd go in and try to figure out all of the different details for all of, we have, I don't know, 10 different purchase and sale agreements here in Connecticut, and that everyone uses a different one, so it's not all of the same. Trying to read through all of these and then put them into a spreadsheet so then I can send it to a client for them to make heads or tails of it. I can do all of that now right here inside of Command. So what I'm going to do is every time I have multiple offers, regardless of one or more, I'm putting the offers here inside of my offer timeline. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on add a new offer. We can name the offer and then create. It's going to ask us for the name, the offer date, when did we receive the offer, and when is it projected to close. Then we're going to move into parties. And because we're on the selling side, brings in the seller's information as well as mine. It's just asking now that I put in the buyer's name and the co-broke's name. If you wanted to put in the other information, you could. It's not necessarily required. The other piece that would be nice to have is, are they pre-approved or are they pre-qualified, or both, whatever it may be. And then we're going to go to terms. When it comes to the terms, it asks for cash in the amount financed, and then it totals the sale price. So I'm not going to put in the sale price. It's going to do the math for me. So the cash is the total amount that they are bringing to the table. So if they're putting 5% down, the cash is 5%. And then the remainder is the amount that they finance. So it's not, they put down $1,000 deposit and that's the cash and the rest is financed. It would be the total down payment. So let's say they're putting down 15,000 and they're financing 250. Then we come to our earnest money amount. So here's our deposit. If we know the percentage, we can put that in. Otherwise, if we had a dollar amount, we can manually type that in as well. As we move forward through these different pieces, they may not apply to you and your market, but they're there because, again, KW crosses all of the states, and option fees are something that may not apply here, but it'll apply somewhere else. So if it doesn't apply, you can ignore it and skip it. Same thing with termination options and seller costs, so on and so forth. So now I'm going to go to agent analysis. Here's where I get to have my pros and my cons and my summary of the offer. This is where I get to type in some verbiage to let the seller know information about this offer that may not show up in those numbers. So pro, this one here, I know the lender, they're very timely. They only deal with A+ buyers. They're putting down 30%, whatever it may be. Cons, they're trying to do an FHA financing. However, we know that there's peeling paint and the roof needs to be replaced, and we're not doing any of that. It probably won't fly, just to kind of give you a heads up. And then a summary of the whole offer. And this is going to show up inside a whole sheet for them when we compare them all. So let me see if I can jump into, really quick, a live one that we had, just to kind of give you an idea. So here's one. I have a handful of offers that we have received. I put them all in there. I'm going to come up to the top here and hit select all. And now it's going to select all 8 offers. And now I'm going to click on compare offers here on the right-hand side. And it's going to give me this spreadsheet. And it's going to break down all of the information about all of the offers. And now I can either email this over to the client and ask them to review it, and we'll have a conversation. I can download this as a PDF and it will show similarly. And then I can email that or print it out and kind of review it that way. But now it's really convenient for me to just look at this, all the offers, instead of trying to find what the purchase price is and all of these other information on 10 different contracts. It's all right here, very easy, ready for me to go. And outside of a couple hours that it would have taken me in the past, this took me about 5 minutes per piece to kind of put them all in as they came in. And the client was very pleased being able to view and then make a decision. So once we get our offer in and we have now the ability to accept an offer, I'm going to go ahead and hit this accept button. And when I do, I'm now going to have the ability to manage my commissions. So if you had been using this in the past, there was an offer and commissions tab that would light up. They're now combined. So I can just click on manage commission. And this is now where I would do my new green sheet. So every time it's always missing the contract date, which is fine. So I would go ahead and click on edit general info and change my contract date here to whenever it was I signed it and save changes. I'm not going to go into too much detail into here, again, because every office does it slightly differently, but this is where I would go in to add in my co-broke, to add in my referral partner to add in inside or outside referrals, whatever it may be, any deductions, my KW Cares, my KW Kids Can, my Bold Scholarship donations, it would all go right in here. And then I would submit that to my back office, and then they could approve or decline it from there. All right, so now I move on to notes. When I think of notes inside of my opportunity, I'm thinking of notes about the transaction itself, not about the clients. That would go inside of my contact card. This is going to be here for me to put notes about what's actually corresponding inside of my deal. If I have a TC or if I have some kind of admin in here, we can communicate in here very easily. Or if you're a team, you'll have a discussion button up here where you'll actually have a chat box that you can leave notes in and have a conversation with someone in the real time right here in that chat box. David, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, in regards to commission, I don't know if this is something that you were referring to as in regards to how each MC handles it, but in concerning offers that have a closing cost credit in calculating the commission.
To your point, it has to do with how the market center is going to handle it.
Okay.
To give you an example for my market center, although we take the commissions tab as to create the DA, we also then have one more sheet they fill out before closing, which that trumps the DA to create our commission statement. So if it's off of gross or net, we're going off of the closing statement versus our commission tab. So it doesn't impact me one way or the other, whether someone puts in the sales price or the net price. But there's no way for it to calculate your net by putting in the sales price. You'll have to choose one or the other. So outside of notes, the next piece is timeline. This is going to show you everything that has happened inside of this opportunity. And that way it's a good place for you to go. If anything ever happens, you have compliance right here to show who's been inside the opportunity, when they went in, and what they did. All right, so we went through all of the tabs inside of here. There's a couple more pieces at the top that I'm going to go through, which we're also going to go into when we talk about the pipeline itself. So at the top, we're going to see a checklist here, a 0/3. This means that there's 3 items that I gave to myself for me to do, and I can check them off as they're completed, and I can access that here inside of the opportunity. I'm going to show you how we're going to create these and how we can access them in the other screen as well. The other thing that you'll see in the middle of the screen is client updates. This here allows me to check off a completed task and then send that update to the client once a day. I just have to make sure that when I check them off, that this is actually going to be feasible, or it's going to be something appropriate to send to your clients, right? If it's send pre-list packet, I'm not going to check that off as a client update. Maybe I'm using some short-term or acronyms. I'm not going to send that. You're going to want to make sure that whatever you put in there is going to be appropriate for the client. How do you make the checklist? We're going to get to that here in a little bit, Sharon. With the client updates here, when we check them off, you're also going to want to make sure that in the top right, client updates is actually turned on. If you're checking off client updates and the client update is not turned on, they will not actually get anything. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that in case you're like, well, I keep checking them off, nothing's sending. This is why. So you have to do this individually each for every opportunity. All right, so now let's jump back into our pipeline here. I'm back inside of the main screen here of opportunities, looking at my dashboard, and we see all of the phases here. So cultivate, appointment, active under contract, close. Inside of each of the phase, we have stages. The stages are which are all customizable. This screen also shows us how many opportunities we have in each one of these phases and how long they've been there and how much volume is there. And now when we were creating that opportunity, we had the ability to put in what is our, if we're working the buyer, what is our estimated purchase price? If we're working with the seller, what's our estimated list price? And then also commission. And by doing so, we get to now look at our GCI here on the right-hand side. And we have potential income, which is assuming everything in this pipeline closes, that's what our potential income is, versus our probable income, which is based on where it is inside of the pipeline. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Cultivate here, and we're going to see that there's percentages. These percentages are what are going to give us our probable income on that last screen. As you see, the further I move to the right, the higher the percentage, because we're moving them through the process. The further they get to the closing table, the more likely it is for them to close until we get to closed, and hopefully that's 100%. Legacy, that had to do with when you had dot loop connected, it creates legacy columns. That's where that came from. All right, so now I'm underneath Cultivate. And this is my first phase, and I have 3 stages here. These are my defaults. I haven't done too much with them, and I don't really want to. You can go ahead and name and add and do whatever you want with them. However, the way I look at these 3 is my hot lead is someone that's going to transact with me in the next 30 days. My nurture lead is someone in the next 3 months, and then watch could be 6, 12 months, whenever it may be out. And each one of these stages has a different set of checklists for me to do that's going to help me move them forward through my pipeline. And so the question was, how do I create these tasks and these checklists? So once I'm inside of one of my phases, I'm going to come up to the right-hand side and it says Edit Stages. That's going to allow me to now move them around, change my probability, add my checklists, create new ones, delete, remove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new stage up here on the top right. I'm going to name my new stage just that. This is going to be after my hot lead. So maybe this is something that is more likely to close within the next couple of weeks. So maybe I'll, instead of, we had 10% for hot lead, maybe I put 12 and I'll be position 4. Now, this is going to show me a checklist that I can create when I'm creating this stage, which is a little bit different than if you were adding the checklist of an existing one. So what I would do, add item, new checklist item, and then continue moving down the list and adding all of those in. Then I can move them around if I wanted to change the order by clicking on the little dots and moving them up. I can choose that every time I complete this, I want a client update, or I can come over and edit or delete them. So once I do that, I'll hit save, and now that's going to appear here in my list. So now we'll see here, my new stage, 12% probability with 2 items, and one of them goes to my client. Now, if I wanted to go in and create a new checklist or add items, I'm just going to click on the link here. It says 01 items. It's going to bring up my list, and I'll do the same thing. New items here. Save, move them around, choose if I'm selecting them or not. Now, something to think about while creating these checklists. Take a moment, look at your business. What are the things that you do or want to be doing for every single transaction? Now, I know a lot of agents are like, yes, I do the same thing every single time. And then we look granular at every single transaction. There may be one thing that you may have forgotten on this one and something else you forgot on the other one. So this is really going to help you stay on track, move through the transaction, or when it's time to hire someone, or maybe you already have someone on staff, for them to do it without having to skip a beat. They know exactly what your standards are and what you need to do from the time they're a watch all the way up until closing. So you'll do these checklists for every stage all the way through. And as you move them through, they'll have that checklist for you to check off inside of your tasks that are associated with your daily list. All right, so let's jump back. So now
I have a quick question.
Yes.
When you check off things on the task list, is that part of what gets sent to the client in updates?
Only if you have it selected as
Okay,
a client update.
thank you.
Yep. All right, so now we have a couple different views here. We're still inside of our cultivate phase. and we're seeing watch, nurture, hot. And as I have conversations with these clients and I want to move them through my pipeline, there's a couple different ways that I can do that. So I can click and drag and drop them very simply. So click, drag, move them along right on over. And you'll see even the checklists change. So 0 of 2, checklist updates. I have 0 of 3, that'll appear here. And the count updates as well. The other thing to keep track of is at the very bottom is my probable versus potential income also changes for me. So as I move them through, that will update. This one here, I didn't put in a dollar amount, which is why you have 0 and it's not changing. But now I've gone from a hot lead to now we have an appointment. I'm just going to click and drag it all the way up to appointment. And it's going to move right into there for me. And I would do the same thing. Now we're active, under contract, and so on and so forth. So someone asked before about archiving opportunities. The only way I'm going to archive this opportunity is if I made it by mistake, or in my case, I'm teaching a class, I'm going to archive it. And I can't do that if it's under contract. So it has to be cultivate, appointment, or active. So I'm inactive. I'm just going to click archive, and then that will hide it for me. Did someone have a question? Should all contacts be put into command first and then move to opportunities? Kimberly, you cannot create an opportunity without the contact. So you always start in contacts. So you create the contact first, and then you create the opportunity. All right, so I'm going to come now back to my pipeline here. And I'm going to scroll down a bit. You'll see leases are here as well. Depending on your area, you may have more or not deal with leases at all. But inside of leases, this pipeline combines your tenants and your landlords. So when I click on cultivate here, you'll see at the top, it says type, and I'm going to have tenant versus landlord. And I'll switch between those two depending on what it is I'm dealing with or working towards. As I continue to scroll down, I'm going to have some numbers that I can look at. And it tells me what are my ratios. So what are my listings to my buyers, to my leases, how many I have, what my percentages is, and my probable versus potential income, looking at it right here all in one place. Does it affect the agent in any way to mark an opportunity as lost opportunity? Just with reporting. It doesn't affect you in any way other than it shows that you have so many lost. That's all it is. It's just for your record keeping. Right to the right of this, now we have activity, and we can see how many opportunities we've had throughout. And obviously the more that we have, or more steady that you have, the better. When you have this roller coaster, right, that's when we know we got to adjust some things. Or if it's going down, what do we need to focus on? And you can do that for all opportunities, listing, buyer, landlord, or tenants. And your favorite one should be here at the very bottom. Here are my closings for the month. So all of your closings will be listed out that should be closing in this month. So March 1st to the 30th, right? 31st, I'm sorry. It will appear there. Then once it closes, you'll move it into the closing piece here, and it says 0 closings. That then resets at the end of the month and will become 1, and it'll become 0 at the end of the month. They didn't go anywhere other than they moved from your closed, and you can still find them here at the top under all opportunities. So some people like coming to all opportunities to find their opportunity versus in their pipeline, which is totally fine. And there's a couple different ways that you can kind of search through here. So on the top, I'll have address, opportunity name, assignee, contact. So if I want to search by the person, who's working it, the name of the opportunity versus the address, because those may not be the same. Then I can go ahead and filter by the type, the phase, volume, commission, close dates. So I can come in and say, all right, I'm going to go to filters, and I want to see everything that has closed, and I want to see it from last year, close date, and I'll hit apply. And now I can take a look at here was my activity from 2020. And now here are all of my closed opportunities from last year, and can kind of get an idea of what my business looked like. I can do the same thing for this year, for the years past, for a quarter, whatever it may be. Give me an idea number wise of what's going on. You can also set up filters for different things I want to keep track of, how many appointments I have, how many actives or pendings, and all of this information feeds reports. So if you've set up your goals inside reports, as you create these and set these up, move them forward, your reports are going to update and you'll know exactly where you are and where you need to be moving forward to catch up, or if you're ahead and can know that you're going to hit your goals and maybe increase them at that point. So the other way to find your opportunity is going to be actually within the contact card. So we've gone through pretty much everything inside of opportunities. All opportunities allows you to see those. The other piece I'll point out in all opportunities is you can also see your archives. So if I want to include those, I've archived them, I can then search by those as well, and I'll still see them. So they're just hidden. But now let's go to the contacts. I'll go to Christine. And we'll see here on the right-hand side, I have an opportunities tab, and then all of the opportunities that are associated with that contact. And then I can just click on that, and it will bring me right to that opportunity where I can then continue to work on it. And that'll be the same for Christine or Peter in this case. All right, wonderful. I went through quite a bit of information about a few different things here inside of opportunities. We got a few minutes left. I want to open it up. What questions do you have? What things did I go too quickly? I need to go back with and just make sure that you're comfortable with all of this. Thank you, Amy, for coming. Appreciate it. Can you pull an opportunity out of an archive? Yes, absolutely. See if I can show you that quickly. Back to the graph on the deals closed. Give me one second. Let me see if I can find an archives. I don't know if I've archived one or how to find that particular one. I might. Which one did we just archive? Main Street.
I think if you change the filters.
Yeah, I did. I turned on include.
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember what the name of that was. So I apologize. I have too many 123 Main Streets to kind of figure out which one it is, click through all of them. But yes, you can go in and unarchive it it'll show back up in your pipeline. Can you go back to the graph? All right, let's see here. Was this the graph that you were referring to, Katina?
Yes. Can you change that graph so it only shows this year?
So this is the past 12 months running. It wouldn't be something I can change to say, I only want to see January to February, but January, February, March is here for me to look at.
What do those numbers mean? Like it said 60?
How many opportunities I have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if I look at and I total all of these up, that would be the 60.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, does anyone else have any other questions that I can touch on for today? Awesome. Well, we will get this recording uploaded to the YouTube channel here very soon, where everyone can go back and watch this one or any of the classes that we've had going on the past few weeks. And moving forward, we're going to have a few more classes every Thursday here at 1 p.m. Yes, contacts, then opportunities. Always contacts first and then create the opportunity. Yep. Cool. All right, everyone. I'll hang out for a few more minutes. If anyone wants to hang on to ask questions, feel free. Otherwise, have a spectacular day and I'm sure you will have a wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.
Fred, can I ask you a question about the app?
Sure.
So I'm not sure